College football has been plagued with one real big issue that's really been glaring ever since they kind of shifted from the BCS system to the college football playoff system. And that's honestly the fact that we have never, ever been able to really find a good, four teams. And then they made it 12 because they said, maybe it's really hard to find the top four, but it can't be that hard to find the top 12, right? And then they let Indiana in. So, there goes that. But let's at least highlight some of the good that happened this week before we highlight, how Indiana has no business being there, how SMU isn't necessarily fraudulent, but rather just can't compete under the big lights, and some of the other issues that really plagued this weekend. First off, home field atmospheres were electric. When SMU played in Penn State, SMU, an ACC team, had their first big experience. Their second, because we saw them actually play against Clemson, and that really wasn't amazing. We saw the team get off to a really slow start, and after the slow start, second half, they really picked it up, and if they would have continued like that all the way through the game, they probably would have won. They probably would have faced Texas instead, or honestly, Bama would have been in. They would have faced, or they would have actually won their whole conference, so they probably would have made it in over Arizona State, and then Arizona State would have it would have been a whole debacle, basically. But because they didn't, they just can't compete under the big lights. And Penn State, whiteout crowd, committing so many, at least making SMU commit so many false starts, insane to watch in person. That right there was the definition of an NCAA 25 moment, honestly. Now, if we're looking at some other good home field atmospheres, Ohio State, hate them or love them. For me, hate them. Big go blue kind of guy, but Ohio State did a good job for the most part. I actually showed up this game compared to the Michigan game. So the Ohio State crowd, great job on your part for beating Tennessee, although they were missing their best running back. So is what it is. Good job on that. Now, another great thing that we saw, though, was a lot of draft stocks went up, such as like Cade Klubnik from Clemson. Dude balled 336 yards, 3 touchdowns. If you would have told me he was going to do that against Texas, one of the best defenses that we've seen in college football recently, I would have said you're crazy. I would have said ain't no way. But, I'm not an NFL scout. I knew the dude was good. I didn't know he was that good. Dude balled. He really looked like a real NFL quarterback. Now, a second draft stock I thought really rose, again, within that same game, because that was one of the only good games. I think that was actually the only good game we had in the first week of the college football playoffs, or the 12-team bracket at least. And that would be Jaden Blue. Jaden Blue is the running back. I want to say backup running back, or tandem, dual, squad, I don't know. But he's the backup running back, and he's typically the receiving running back, at least for Texas. You typically see a lot of him when either they're losing or when they're up by a lot, or when they just need a nice change of pace back. He's when I guess what's his name? Quinshon Wisner, something like that. I want to say I pronounced it very close to correct. With all due respect, sorry. But when he is the Najee Harris but better, I'd say Jaden Blue is the Jaylen Warren, but significantly better. Today, Jaden Blue ran for 177 yards. Actually, not just ran, had 177 total yards, along with 2 rushing touchdowns, really proving that he's a really good dual threat back. Because who else is going to get you 177 and 2 touchdowns besides someone like a CMC, besides someone like a Jaylen Warren, besides someone like a Breece Hall? That's a dude you want on your team. So I think those 2 draft stocks really rose. And then another player whose draft stock rose, who we won't see in the draft, but is a surefire first-round pick already, Jeremiah Smith, Ohio State. Had to mention it. 103 yards, 6 receptions, 2 touchdowns. Dude's him. On a team with draft it out, star-studded running backs, a really good super senior quarterback. This true freshman, I want to say true freshman, figure out a way to become the best wide receiver over some receivers that we see with the Ohio State program, like Emeka Ibuka, who should have been by far the surefire number 1. And he got spot taken by a freshman. That's insane. So I really think that those 3 draft stocks went really high up. And honestly, if Ohio State keeps this up, that Oregon game, upset watch, baby. Just put it out there, upset watch. New Year's, upset watch. Calling it now. Just saying. Big Michigan fan. Amazing Michigan fan, but upset watch. But now let's get into the bad of what actually happened this week, which was horrible to say the least. Hi, Indiana. It's me, your biggest hater. Yeah, hi. You had no business being there, but good job taking a spot, you know? A lot of years of failure. Happy for you that you even got an opportunity that people really thought that you might be something when we all knew you were frauds. So good job taking a spot from Bama. Love to see Bama fans mad, but not this mad because, geez, y'all look like you lose to UNLV. I'm not gonna lie. So when I look at Indiana personally, I get really weird vibes, so to say, from Indiana. And I only say that because even though they are 11th in strength of record, they are 32nd when it comes to strength of schedule. A team that's 35th when it comes to strength of schedule, though, is Oregon, the team that's 13 and 0. But let's take a look at Indiana's record. Actually, I'm going to just put this out here right now. Oregon faced a ranked Illinois team, a ranked Ohio State team, and then finished off their season with a ranked Penn State. Beat all of them, by the way. Let's look at Indiana, though. That's who we're really here to focus on. Indiana had a combined teams beat record. So all the teams they beat, their record combined was 61 and 81. 61 wins and 81 losses. One of them being 1-11 Purdue. That is abysmal. Horrible one, might say. Of all the teams they beat, they only beat one team with a winning record, which was 7-5 Michigan. They beat two teams that were 6-6, being Nebraska and Washington, and they have one ranked loss to 10-2 Ohio State. So this team right here, their best win was literally over a 7-5 team. That's not glaring to anyone? Do we just ignore that when we said, so Bama beat Georgia. Oh, Ole Miss also beat Georgia, but hey, that win against Michigan. Michigan beat Ohio State. That's a rivalry, but Michigan, send them in. Like, the only reason why they never exactly got exposed is not because it's because one, they never faced a ranked opponent. They never faced multiple ranked opponents, first of all. But two, because they were third in their whole conference, they didn't get the opportunity to get exposed on national television to compete for a championship. So 1 + 1 here equals 2. Didn't get the opportunity to compete for a championship. Only faced one ranked team, which they lost to. Won everything else out. We just fully glossed over that. But we cannot do that anymore. Because if we want this 12 teams playoff to really succeed, that's not necessarily what we need to see. So I'm also hearing that SMU is a fraud, which I take to heart. SMU, in my opinion, is a good team. Just can't play under the bright lights. As I said before in the video, when they faced Clemson, slow start. Once they got comfortable, got cooking. This time they faced a Penn State team that is honestly probably one of the most hostile environments, if not the most hostile environment in all of college football. Everyone knows the myth of the Penn State whiteout game. We saw it in, I want to say it was against Michigan, where they got a delay of game literally off of the first snap delay of game. Insane. And I want to say SMU had the most false starts they've ever had all season against Penn State. So we kind of just have to acknowledge playing in Penn State's hard, dude. And that home field advantage when you're facing a team that's equally better than you to a bit better than you is insane. Because not only do you have the enemy team against you that's already better, now you have an opposing crowd that you have to get out of rhythm. That's really hard to get out of rhythm because they come in geeked off one. Absolutely insane. So when you're coming from an ACC school and you have to go face a Penn State in Penn State for the first college football playoff game of the 12-team bracket, they had no chance of winning already. It was already really hard, and they just can't play under the bright lights. Is what it is. Also, if we're actually going to look at their record, it's a much better record than Indiana, if like the record breakdown. So to say, let's look at how many teams they faced with winning records. They faced 5 of them. The 5 being TCU, Louisville, Duke, Pittsburgh, Boston College. Now if we're going to look at, who did they face that was 6-6? Cal. So they honestly have about 6 wins against bowl-eligible teams. So they're not a bad team. They're not a bad team by any means compared to an Indiana. Jeez. And then they have one ranked loss. It's to BYU, 10-2 BYU. BYU was undefeated until they lost 2 of the last 3 games, and is what it is. So, like, you really have to look at how SMU stacked up compared to Indiana. And one team is a fraud, the other team just can't play under the bright lights. It is what it is. So, but if we're really going to take a deeper look at Indiana, I mean, that's really what I want to do here. Because I want to actually be able to fix what the issue was so this doesn't happen again. Obviously so. My solution here is that we're just not going to look at strength of record, strength of schedule. We're not going to look at any of those because that's so misleading. Because you're going to tell me that a team that only has one win against a team with a winning record had the 32nd highest strength of schedule? That's weird. That's wrong. That's just wrong in total. So my solution here is actually this. We're going to not reward teams for winning against losing teams, and we're going to punish teams for, losing in general. Don't care who they lost to. So I've actually fully broke down Indiana's insane run because it's honestly laughable to me when I actually started breaking it down. So in week 6, actually, hear me out. In week 6, Indiana entered the top 25 at 23 after they beat a 2-2 Maryland team. In week 7, though, Indiana went up 5 spots after they beat another 2-2 Northwestern team. Northwestern ended 4-8, by the way. I want to say Maryland ended 4-8 as well. So that's not impressive. They jumped 4 spots. They entered the top 25 and jumped 4 spots from beating 2 teams that were never even bowl eligible. But that's neither here nor there because this gets even crazier. So when they jumped 5 spots in week 7 to the 18th spot, Missouri lost to Texas A&M, marking their first loss. Take a guess. By the way, Texas A&M was ranked at that time. So take a guess how many spots Missouri dropped. Indiana went up 5 spots from beating a 2-2 team. So how many spots did, Missouri drop from losing to a ranked team? 5? No. It wasn't 5. 6? No. 8? No. 12. They dropped 12 spots from losing to a ranked Texas A&M team for their first loss. And on the other hand, we have Indiana, who has faced, by the way, at this point, no teams with winning records, up at 18. I have a big issue here already. We have a major problem. So let's continue this though. And they were ranked as high as number 5. And after their loss to Ohio State, they didn't drop down 12 spots like Missouri. They didn't drop down 9 spots like Ole Miss when they lost to LSU, who was ranked at the time. They didn't drop 13 spots like Notre Dame when they lost to unranked Northern Illinois, by the way. Shout out to Northern Illinois. Good win, by the way. Amazing. Really happy for y'all. And they didn't drop 7 spots like Louisville did when they lost to Notre Dame. They dropped 5 spots. Only 5. They saw that whooping Ohio State gave them and said, I think 5 spots is good. That's just wrong. They got exposed. They got fully on blast. They got blasted, exposed, lost by 20. I want to say it was 23, 15 to 38. 15 to 38 to Ohio State. And they only dropped 5 spots. Make that make sense. Like, it doesn't. It doesn't make sense. So, Indiana honestly has no business being there. If we're going to actually treat every team fairly, then we can very clearly see that they showed a heavy bias to Indiana, which really makes me wonder who paid. I want to know who's the big donor at Indiana, because there is no reason why Missouri should drop 12 spots after losing 1 game and having that be their first loss, and Indiana only dropped 5 slots after losing to another ranked opponent. It just makes no sense to me personally. Another big issue that I honestly see, which is actually not an issue that affected this week, but will 100% affect next week, is injuries. Injuries to major teams will absolutely ruin next week. And I'm just going to put this out here right now. Arizona State, love y'all. You're not going to win. I'm sorry. It's not going to look pretty either. Texas will win. And I'm only saying this for one reason. For the fact that the dog, absolute stud sophomore wide receiver, Jordan Tyson, he goes for 41% of Sam Levitt's passing yards, by the way. He got hurt with a season-ending injury, and he's not going to play in the game at all. Sure, they have Cam Scatterboo. Dude's a dog. Dude's nice. Really hope he performs quite well when it comes to metrics and have his draft stock rise significantly. In fact, I hope he wins and carries the team past Texas so that his draft stock skyrockets. But sadly, I don't really see that being the case. They're missing their best number one wide receiver, who's a sophomore wide receiver, so we'll see a lot of him next year. And that team against a fully healthy Texas team, for the most part, I don't see putting up that much of a competition. And but we're just gonna completely look at that and be like, number 4, because they didn't plan this out. They didn't plan out the 12-team football format. They quite literally probably got in a room and said, let's grind this out in one day. And that's what they did. Didn't think about all the caveats or anything else in between. Didn't think about any of this. I mean, it's something common people would have thought of, but I guess they're not common people, is what it is. And it just is really unfortunate that we're going to see 2 weeks in a row of bad college football. Don't get me wrong, we're going to have amazing college football. We're going to have Oregon versus Ohio State. We're going to have Boise versus Penn State. I honestly can't wait for that matchup. But then we're going to get, what should be a great week ruined by literally one game, being the Texas versus the Arizona State game. So, and we clearly saw what happens when teams lose some of their best players. Like this week, we quite literally saw it here. When Tennessee lost to Ohio State, they got dog walked by Ohio State because Dylan Sampson, injury in the first quarter, hamstring injury, didn't come back. Actually came back for like 2 snaps in the second half to block, and then they were like, oh, he's hurt. And it was just garbage time. Game was over already. Just put him in, block a little bit, took him back out, ended his season. So we clearly see how injuries can affect teams, and we see it all the time. But I guess college football committee and the playoff committee didn't necessarily consider that. Although it quite literally happened last playoffs with Jordan Travis and Florida State, and they 100% considered it. So I don't know why they didn't even think about writing in a rule for it at all. It just makes no sense. It makes no sense. The college football committee is really confusing because they're not consistent, and that's what angers me as a fan. That's what angers you as a fan. That's what angers many people as fans. So let's get to what I honestly think would be the best solution to all of this. So now that we've covered a majority of the problems, mainly all these problems stem from one thing, being conference realignment. I hate conference realignment. It absolutely ruined all conferences, because now every conference has about 16 to 18 teams, and there's only 12 weeks in a season, and like the first 2 to 3 weeks are non-conference play. So now you're getting about a solid 9 games in against 16 teams, basically, and you're not going to face ranked opponents sometimes, which is why Indiana made it in, for example. Here's how I'm going to solve that, though. We're actually going to expand the playoffs, but we're going to do it a lot differently. Hear me out. So we're going to expand the playoffs. We're going to have the top 4 teams from the top 4 major conferences battle it out. That's like round 1. So we're going to have the 1 face the 4, the 2 face the 3 in all the top 4 conferences. And that way we at least know who's the best in each conference. Honestly, very easy, clear-cut way. That way we're not going to get an Indiana facing, who'd they face again? Notre Dame? We're not going to get that again. We're not going to get the Battle of Indiana again. Because they would have been eliminated after they lost to, honestly, Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State. They would have been dog-walked. We wouldn't have had to deal with it. Oh, also, we're going to shorten the season to 10 weeks. So, make it a lot easier. So, we're going to shorten the season to 10 weeks. Week 11, week 12 is going to be conference championship weeks. Or conference playoffs is what we're going to call it. Along with that, we're going to have the group of 5s. We're going to have 4 group of 5 teams, the highest 4 ranked group of 5 teams, and they're going to have their own little, conference championship playoff time. That way, when we get to what we're seeing now, we have 5 great teams. We're going to have the winner of the SEC, the winner of the ACC, the winner of the Big 12, the winner of the Pac-12, the winner of the Big 10, rest in peace Pac-12, and we're going to have the winner of the group of 5. That way, it's very clear cut. We know these are the 5 best teams from each conference, and the team that's highest ranked, team with the best record out of all of that, they're going to get the bye. That's up to jurisdiction. We're going to get 2 on this side, 2 on this side. Actually, I haven't figured that part out yet, but that's not my job. I don't get paid to do that. I get paid to give y'all ideas. And what I honestly think is probably the best way to do it. We're either doing it that way, or we're putting all 20 teams into one bracket and seeing who makes it out alive. Gonna shorten the season to still to 10 games. Have a 20 team bracket. I think the first 4 teams get buys. You get 16 team bracket, which is literally what the literally what NBA does, so to say. Make it one and done, and it's amazing. And I think this is probably the best way to do it. Only because we get more quality football. We get more fans to watch the games because we're getting more quality football. Like, imagine seeing, I want to say, Georgia versus Penn State in week 12. Absolute cinema. Cinema, my boy. It's amazing. And I honestly think that's the best way that's the best way to honestly fix college football. Boost sales, boost money, everything up. But, I mean, who am I to say that? I'm just a YouTuber. Shut the buck up. Have a great night. Peace.